For 13 years, my husband sent money to his sick sister. Every month. I never questioned it, until the day I met her in person. What I discovered that day changed my life forever. She wasn't sick. She wasn't his sister. She was his wife. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. My name is Eleanor. People call me Ellie. I'm 76 now. Back in 1965, I was 16. A waitress. Farm girl trying to make it in Chicago. Martin walked into that diner on a Tuesday. Bright eyes. Clean shirt. Smiled like he owned tomorrow. He sold auto parts. Traveled for work. Said the road would pay for our dreams. I believed him. We married that fall. I wore my mother's dress. White cotton. Smelled like lavender soap. Our apartment was small. 2 rooms above Murphy's grocery. The walls were thin. The neighbors fought every night. But it was ours. I kept working at the diner. Grease under my fingernails. Coffee stains on my apron. Martin said I could quit once the business picked up. The business never picked up enough. David came first. Then Grace. Then Luke. 3 babies in 5 years. Martin's suitcase lived by the front door. Black leather. Worn handles. Like a pet that never moved. He'd leave Monday mornings. Come back Friday nights. Sometimes Saturday. I learned to sleep alone. Changed diapers alone. Walked the floor with crying babies alone. That's when he told me about Nora. His sister in Indianapolis. Sick. Very sick. Needed help with medical bills. Martin showed me her letter. Shaky handwriting. Talked about treatments. Doctor visits. Pain that wouldn't stop. My heart broke for her. Every month, Martin counted out bills. 50s mostly. Sometimes hundreds. Thick envelope. Sealed tight. I watched him lick the stamp. Press it down careful. Write her address in his neat script. The money came from somewhere. Not from his salary. I knew every penny of that. From overtime, he said. Extra routes. Commission bonuses. I never saw the extra money come in. Only saw it go out. But I trusted him. Good wives trusted their husbands. That's what my mother taught me. The diner shifts got longer. My tips went to groceries. Rent. Baby clothes from the church sale. Martin's clothes stayed nice. His shoes stayed shined. I told myself love meant sacrifice. That families helped families. That Nora needed us more than we needed new curtains. Years passed like pages turning. David started school. Grace learned to read. Luke lost his first tooth. Still, every month. The envelope. The stamp. The address in Indianapolis. I memorized it without meaning to. 1247 Maple Street. Indianapolis, Indiana. Sometimes I wondered what she looked like. Martin's sick sister. If she had his dark hair. His stubborn chin. I imagined her thin. Pale. Grateful for our help. 13 years of envelopes. 13 years of believing. Then came March of 1978. I was ironing Martin's blazer. Getting ready for another road trip. Another week alone with the kids. The pocket felt heavy. I reached inside. Found a birthday card. Homemade. Child's handwriting. Happy birthday, Daddy. We love you. From Nora and Paige. My hands started shaking. The iron slipped. Burned a hole right through the sleeve. Daddy. Not brother. Daddy. I sat down hard on the kitchen chair. Read the card again. And again. The words didn't change. A week later, Martin's company called. Asked if he could take an urgent route to New York. Big client. Good money. I told them he'd already left Monday morning. Like always. The man on the phone went quiet. Said Martin hadn't picked up any routes that week. Hadn't been in the office for days. I hung up, stared at the phone until it blurred. That night, I searched his dresser. The drawer where he kept warranties. Old receipts. Things he thought I'd never look at. Found a second checkbook. Different bank. Different name on the account. Martin and Nora Thompson. Joint account. Like married people have. Found more letters. Not from a sick sister. From a woman who signed them, "All my love." From a woman who wrote about their daughter's school play. Their daughter's lost tooth. Their daughter's first day of kindergarten. Page. Their daughter. I copied down the address. 1247 Maple Street. The same address I'd memorized from 13 years of envelopes. But it wasn't an address for medical bills. It was an address for a home. A home where Martin lived when he wasn't living with us. I tucked the paper behind our wedding photo. Pressed it flat like pressing flowers. The next week, Martin packed for what he said was a business trip to Manhattan. Important client meeting. Might run long. I kissed his cheek. Tasted lies on his skin. I waited until his car disappeared around the corner. Then I walked the kids to Nancy's next door. Told Nancy I had errands to run. Might be late. I took the bus to Indianapolis. 3 hours south. Through farmland and small towns. Past billboards for tractors and family restaurants. I sat by the window. Watched my reflection blur with the passing fields. The bus station in Indianapolis smelled like diesel and coffee. Old men sat reading newspapers. Young mothers bounced babies on their laps. I asked the taxi driver for 1247 Maple Street. He nodded like he knew the neighborhood. The building was neat. Brick front. Clean windows. A sign by the door, House and Hems. Custom drapery. Not a house where sick people lived. A business. I stood on the sidewalk for 10 minutes. Watching. Waiting. A girl came out the front door. Maybe 16. Brown hair in a braid. Martin's eyes. Martin's stubborn chin. She smiled at me. Asked if I needed help. I couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. Then I heard footsteps inside. Heavy shoes on wooden floors. The door opened wider. Martin filled the doorway, still in his good clothes. Still with his traveling salesman smile. Until he saw me, his face went white as fresh snow. Behind him, a woman appeared. My age. Pretty. Red lipstick perfect even at 3 in the afternoon. She looked at me, then at Martin, then back at me. Understanding passed between us like cold wind. The girl, Paige, looked confused. Asked if we all knew each other. I reached into my coat pocket. Pulled out the birthday card. Set it on the counter between us. My hands weren't shaking anymore. I told them my name. Told them I'd been married to Martin for 13 years. Told them my children had his stubborn chin too. Nobody argued. There was nothing left to argue with. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. We stood in that shop. The 4 of us. Like actors who'd forgotten their lines. The fabric rolls watched us. Silent witnesses to a lie unraveling. Martin tried to speak first. His mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. Nothing came out but air. The woman, Nora, stared at him. Her red lipstick had lost its shine. She looked older suddenly, like someone had turned up the lights. Paige pressed her back against the wall. Slid down slow. Her knees pulled to her chest. She cried without sound. Tears just falling, like rain on windows. I felt something break inside my chest. Not my heart. Something deeper. Martin finally found his voice. Said he could explain everything. Said it wasn't what it looked like. But it was exactly what it looked like. He told us about love. About how life gets complicated. About good intentions gone wrong. His words fell flat, like coins on concrete. Nora spoke then, her voice barely a whisper. Said Martin told her he was a widower. Said his first wife died in childbirth. Said he was waiting for pension papers. Legal things. Widow benefits. Said he'd marry her proper once the paperwork cleared. She'd been waiting 7 years for those papers. I laughed then. Couldn't help it. Sharp laugh. Like glass breaking. 7 years of waiting for a dead woman's pension. A dead woman who was standing right there. Paige looked up at me. Her face streaked with tears. Asked if I was really her father's wife. I nodded. Told her I had 3 children at home. Her half-brothers and sister. Told her they had his stubborn chin too. The shop smelled like fabric softener and lies. Sweet and chemical. I reached into my coat pocket. Found another secret there. One I hadn't planned to share. The doctor's note from last week. Positive pregnancy test. Baby number 4. I'd been saving it to tell Martin when he got home. Wanted to surprise him. Now it felt like a weight in my pocket. Heavy as stones. I didn't show them the note. Some secrets are too fragile for shop floors. Martin asked what I wanted him to do. Like I was the one with the answer. Like I was the one who'd made this mess. I told him to stay away from me and the children. Said it clear and simple. No yelling. No crying. Just facts. He reached toward me then. Hand stretched out like he might touch my sleeve. I stepped back. Fast. His hand hung in the air. Empty. Nora spoke again. Said she'd built this business believing in tomorrow. Believing in promises. Said she'd signed loans with Martin's name on them. Rent agreements. Insurance forms. All based on the lie of being his only wife. The afternoon light shifted in the windows. Longer shadows now. Colder. I looked around the shop. Really looked. Saw the careful displays. The order. The hope. This wasn't just a business. This was a life someone had built. Thread by thread. Just like I'd been building mine. Paycheck by paycheck. Dinner by dinner. 2 women. 1 lie. Same broken pieces. I told Paige I was sorry. Sorry she had to learn about grown-up lies so young. Told her it wasn't her fault. None of it. She nodded but didn't speak. Some hurts are too deep for words. The shop door chimed. A real customer walked in. Middle-aged woman looking for curtains. She took one look at us. Our faces. Our silence. Turned around and left. Even strangers could smell the wreckage. Martin tried one more time. Said he loved us both. Said he never meant for anyone to get hurt. I told him intent doesn't matter when the house is already burning. Told him love doesn't split clean down the middle. Like fabric cut wrong. Either you're married or you're not. Either you're honest or you're not. No middle ground for bigamy. I looked at my watch. The kids would be wondering where I was. Nancy would need to start dinner. Life was waiting back in Chicago. Real life. With real problems that needed solving. I walked toward the door. Each step felt like walking underwater. Behind me, I heard Nora crying. Soft sounds. Like something small breaking. Martin called my name. Eleanor. Full name. Like we were strangers now. Maybe we always had been. I didn't turn around. The door chimed again as I left. Same sound as when I'd arrived. But everything had changed. Outside, Indianapolis air felt foreign on my skin. Like breathing in another country. The bus station was 6 blocks away. I walked slow. Let the afternoon settle around me. Past storefronts with their cheerful displays. Past mothers pushing strollers. Past men in suits heading home to families. Normal people living normal lives. No double wives. No secret children. No birthday cards hidden in blazer pockets. At the bus station, I bought a ticket home. The clerk asked if I'd enjoyed my visit. I told him it was educational. The bus smelled like diesel and disinfectant. I found a seat by the window. Watched Indianapolis fade behind me. Like a bad dream disappearing. But I wasn't waking up. This was real. This was my new life. 3 hours north to Chicago. To my children. To my future. Whatever that looked like now. The baby in my belly stirred. First time I'd felt movement. Like a reminder. Like a promise. Like hope knocking from the inside. I put my hand on my stomach. Whispered that everything would be okay. Even if I wasn't sure I believed it yet. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. I got home after dark. The porch light was on. Nancy had kept the children fed. She took one look at my face. Asked no questions. Just hugged me tight. The kids were already asleep. David in his twin bed. Grace curled with her stuffed rabbit. Luke sprawled sideways like he always did, taking up the whole mattress. I stood in their doorway. Watched them breathe, in and out, simple and steady. They looked so small, so trusting, so unprepared for what was coming. Nancy made tea, strong and sweet. We sat at my kitchen table. The same table where Martin had counted out bills every month. Where I'd ironed his shirts. Where I'd believed his lies for 13 years. I told Nancy everything. The shop. The other wife. The daughter who looked like my children. She listened without interrupting. Her hands wrapped around her cup like it was warmth itself. When I finished, she asked what I was going to do. I didn't know yet. Had no plan. No roadmap for this kind of wreckage. But I knew one thing. Martin wasn't coming back to this house. Not to sleep in our bed. Not to eat at our table. Not to pretend anymore. Sunday came and went. No Martin. No phone call. No explanation. Just silence where his voice used to be. Monday morning, the phone rang. His company. Asking where he was. I told them to ask his other wife. The man on the phone went quiet. Asked what I meant by other wife. I hung up before he could ask more questions. Tuesday, another call. Same company. Different person. Said Martin had quit. Just like that. No notice. No forwarding address. No final paycheck to mail. Gone like smoke in wind. I sat at that kitchen table. Bills spread like bad cards. Rent due in 2 weeks. Groceries running low. 3 children who needed lunch money for school. And a 4th child growing inside me. Due in 5 months. The math was simple and cruel. My diner wages wouldn't stretch to cover everything. Not even close. I'd need help. But not charity. Not pity from church ladies with their knowing looks. I'd need work. Real work. Work I could do with my hands. The old Singer sewing machine sat in the basement. My cousin's cast-off. Barely used. I'd learned to sew as a girl. Made my own school dresses. Mended tears and replaced buttons. Basic skills. Nothing fancy. But skills nonetheless. I brought the machine upstairs. Set it by the living room window. Best light in the house. Tested the motor. Still ran smooth. Steady rhythm like a heartbeat. That afternoon, I walked to Miller's dry cleaning. Asked if they needed alterations done. Mr. Miller looked skeptical. Said most women who sewed at home weren't reliable. I told him to give me 1 week. 1 week to prove myself. He handed me 5 pairs of pants. All needed hemming. Said to have them back by Friday. I finished them Thursday night. Every stitch straight. Every measurement perfect. Mr. Miller examined them under his shop lights. Nodded slow. Handed me 6 more. Within 2 weeks, I had regular work. Hems and waistbands. Taking in seams. Replacing zippers. Nothing glamorous. But honest work. Money I could count on. The children adjusted like children do. With questions first. Then acceptance. David asked where Daddy went. I told him Daddy had another family to take care of. Grace wanted to know if it was her fault. I held her close. Told her grown-up problems weren't caused by children. Luke just shrugged. Said maybe now we could get a dog. Some hearts heal faster than others. Especially young hearts. I worked at night after they slept. The sewing machine humming its mechanical lullaby. Seam by seam. Dollar by dollar. Building something new from the pieces left behind. Nancy helped when she could. Watching the kids when I had to pick up work. Bringing casseroles when I worked too late to cook. Being the friend every woman needs when the world tilts sideways. Word spread in the neighborhood. Woman who sewed at home. Reasonable prices. Good work. More customers found me. School uniforms that needed letting out. Wedding dresses that needed taking in. Curtains for kitchen windows. Tablecloths for church dinners. My living room became a workshop. Fabric samples on every surface. Measuring tape draped over chairs. Pincushions lined up like little soldiers. Thread spools sorted by color. The children learned to step carefully. To respect the work that paid for their school shoes. That kept the lights on and the refrigerator humming. By month 3, I was making almost as much as the diner had paid. By month 4, I was making more. The baby grew bigger inside me. Pressing against my ribs when I leaned over the machine. I made loose dresses for myself. Practical clothes that hid the pregnancy until I was ready to explain. Ready to face the questions about absent fathers and uncertain futures. In July, the baby kicked hard during a particularly difficult alteration. A bridesmaid's dress with beadwork. I stopped sewing. Put my hand on my belly. Felt the strong flutter of life. This child would be born into truth. Not lies. Not secrets hidden in blazer pockets. This child would know exactly who their mother was. What she was capable of. What she'd built from nothing but thread and determination. I went back to the dress. Finished the beadwork by lamplight. Each stitch perfect. Each detail exactly as it should be. Like the life I was building. One careful choice at a time. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Hannah was born on a Tuesday morning in August. Fast labor. No complications. I held her in the hospital bed. She had my nose. My stubborn streak already showing. The nurses asked about the father. I told them he wasn't part of the picture. Their faces got that careful look. The one reserved for unwed mothers and other unfortunate women. I didn't care. Hannah was mine. Completely mine. No lies attached to her birth certificate. Nancy picked up the other children from school. Brought them to meet their sister. David held her like she might break. Grace sang a lullaby she'd made up. Luke asked if we could name her something easier to spell. Home felt different with 4 children. Fuller. Louder. More complicated. But also more mine. More honest. More real. The sewing work kept coming. Word traveled fast in our neighborhood. The Italian ladies on Maple Street brought their alterations. The Polish families from St. Mary's Parish. Even the Methodist church ladies started coming. Despite their initial reservations about my situation. Money was what mattered, not judgment, not disapproval, just honest payment for honest work. I moved the sewing operation to the basement. More space, less disruption for the children. Set up proper lighting, organized supplies in labeled boxes. Made it look professional. Because it was professional. This wasn't hobby sewing anymore. This was business. By October, I was turning customers away. Too much work for one person. That's when the phone rang on a Thursday evening. Long-distance call. The operator said it was from Indianapolis. Asked if I'd accept the charges. My first thought was Martin. Come back to make more excuses. But the voice was female. Soft. Familiar. Nora, Martin's other wife. She said she'd gotten my number from the phone book. Asked if we could talk. I almost hung up. Almost slammed the receiver down and walked away. But something in her voice stopped me. A tiredness that matched my own. She told me Martin had disappeared from Indianapolis too. Left the same day I'd visited the shop. No forwarding address. No explanation. Just gone like morning mist. The business was failing without him. Loans coming due. Rent unpaid. She was facing bankruptcy. Losing everything she'd worked to build. I listened without saying much. What was there to say? She asked if I'd heard from him. I told her no. Told her I hoped I never would. Then she said something that surprised me. Asked if I was managing okay. Asked about the children. About my pregnancy she'd witnessed that day in the shop. I told her about Hannah. About the sewing business. About making it work somehow. She went quiet for a long moment. Then asked if I'd consider something. A partnership. Her business knowledge. My sewing skills. Two women building something together. I laughed. Not mean. Just tired. Told her that sounded complicated. She said life was already complicated. We might as well complicate it in our own direction. I told her I'd think about it. Hung up feeling unsettled. Nancy came over that evening. Found me sitting at the kitchen table. Staring at nothing. I told her about the call. About Nora's suggestion. Nancy poured coffee. Strong and black. The way we both liked it. She said sometimes the enemy of your enemy becomes something else. Something unexpected. I thought about that for weeks. While I hemmed school uniforms. While I fed Hannah at night. While I watched my children grow up without a father who'd never really been there anyway. In November, Nora called again. Her voice thinner this time. More desperate. The shop was closing. Creditors circling. Everything going to auction. But she had customers. A client list built over 7 years. People who trusted her work. She asked if I wanted to buy the list. The patterns. The measuring guides. Asked if I wanted to expand beyond neighborhood alterations. The price was fair. Less than I'd saved in 6 months of steady sewing. I said yes before I could talk myself out of it. 2 weeks later, a box arrived by mail. Business records. Customer cards. Order forms. Templates for custom drapery. Instructions for professional measuring. Everything needed to turn my basement operation into something bigger. I studied those papers by lamplight. After the children slept. Learning a new trade. The first custom order came in December. Kitchen curtains for a house in Oak Park. I measured twice. Cut once. Sewed with the precision of someone who couldn't afford mistakes. The customer paid double what I charged for alterations. Recommended me to her neighbors. By Christmas, I had 3 more orders. By New Year, 6. The business was changing, growing, becoming something I hadn't planned. Something that belonged entirely to me. Hannah learned to sleep through the sound of the sewing machine. The children learned to help. David organized supplies. Grace picked thread colors. Luke answered the phone with his careful voice. Even baby Hannah contributed, her presence a reminder of what I was building toward. A future without lies, without double lives, without secrets hidden in coat pockets. A future sewn together with my own hands. Thread by thread, choice by choice, strong enough to hold whatever came next. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Spring of 1979 brought change like rain after drought. Sudden, necessary, overwhelming. Nora called in March. Said she was coming to Chicago. Asked if we could meet. I told her yes. But not at my house. Not where my children lived. We met at a diner downtown. Neutral ground. Public place. Safe distance from my real life. She looked smaller than I remembered. Thinner, like grief had eaten away at her edges. But her eyes were clear. Focused. She'd made decisions during our months apart. She spread papers across the Formica table. Business plans. Financial projections. Partnership agreements. Said she'd been studying what I'd built. The customer base. The quality of work. Said we could do something bigger together. Something neither could do alone. I stirred my coffee, watched the cream swirl and disappear. Asked what she had in mind. A real shop. Professional space. Proper equipment. Not a basement operation anymore. She'd found a storefront on North Avenue. Good location. Reasonable rent. Foot traffic from the L station. Parking for customers with cars. I listened, calculated, weighed risk against reward. The numbers made sense. Barely. If everything went perfectly. If nothing went wrong. She asked what I thought. I told her I'd need time to decide. Told her I had 4 children depending on me. Couldn't afford to gamble with their security. She nodded. Said she understood. Said she had Paige to think about too. We parted ways without shaking hands. Without promises. Just possibilities hanging in the air. That night I walked through my house. Looked at what I'd built from nothing. The sewing machine humming in the basement. Order forms organized by date. Customer payments tucked in the coffee can behind the flour. It was working. This small thing I'd created. But it was still small. Limited by space. By equipment. By the hours in a day. Nancy came over for coffee the next morning. Found me staring at the partnership papers. She read them over. Asked what my gut was telling me. I told her my gut was scared. But my brain saw the opportunity. 2 women. 2 skill sets. Twice the chance of success. Or twice the chance of failure. She reminded me what I'd already survived. Said I was stronger than I knew. Said sometimes you have to risk the life you have to get the life you want. I called Nora that afternoon. Told her yes. But with conditions. Equal partnership. Equal say in all decisions. My children's needs came first. She agreed without hesitation. Said she'd expected nothing less. We signed papers in a lawyer's office. Made it legal. Made it real. Second chance stitchery. That's what we called it. Because everyone deserves one. Including us. The storefront needed work. Paint peeling. Windows cloudy. Floors warped from old leaks. But it had good bones. High ceilings. Natural light from 2 directions. Space for cutting tables. Room for customers to browse fabric samples. We worked nights and weekends to get it ready. Nora scrubbed. I painted. Paige helped after school. Quiet girl with her father's stubborn streak. Her mother's careful hands. My children came too sometimes. David swept floors. Grace organized supplies. Luke charmed customers who stopped to peek through the windows. Even baby Hannah contributed, her laughter echoing off empty walls, making the space feel alive. We opened in June. No grand ceremony. No ribbon cutting. Just a hand-lettered sign in the window. And our first official customer. Mrs. Patterson from the Methodist Church. Needed curtains for her daughter's wedding. White silk. Hand-sewn buttonholes. Detailed beyond anything I'd done before. I measured twice. Cut with trembling hands. Sewed each seam like my life depended on it. Because maybe it did. The curtains were perfect. Mrs. Patterson paid without complaint. Recommended us to 5 friends. Word spread the way good news does in neighborhoods. Slow at first. Then all at once. Alterations. Custom work. Special orders for holidays and celebrations. We hired our first employee in August. Mrs. Chen from the dry cleaners next door. Expert seamstress. Gentle teacher. Patient with customers who couldn't explain what they wanted. By fall, we were working 6 days a week. Taking turns watching each other's children. Building something that felt permanent. Something that could weather storms. I kept the books at home. After dinner. After homework was done. Numbers in careful columns. Income and expenses. Profit slowly growing. Hannah crawling around my feet while I worked. Grabbing at pencils and receipts. The future taking shape one calculation at a time. In November, Nora asked if I thought about Martin anymore. If I wondered where he'd gone. I told her the truth. Sometimes I did wonder. But not often. He'd become like weather from last year. Something that happened. Something that passed. Something that taught me what I could survive. She nodded. Said she felt the same way. Said we'd built something better than what we'd lost. Something honest. Something that belonged to us completely. No lies. No double lives. No secrets waiting to destroy everything. Just work and trust and the slow accumulation of days that added up to a life. A life we'd chosen. A life we'd earned. Thread by thread. Customer by customer. Choice by careful choice. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. The 80s came fast. Like a train you hear but don't see until it's there. David graduated high school in 1982. Earned a scholarship to study engineering. I watched him pack for college. His careful folding. His quiet determination. He'd grown up fast after Martin left. Become the man of the house at 14. Now he was becoming his own man. With his own dreams. His own future. Grace finished high school 2 years later. Talked about fashion school. Design classes. She'd been sketching dress patterns since she was 12. Had an eye for what worked. What made women feel beautiful instead of just covered. Luke graduated in 1986. Natural salesman. Could charm birds from trees. Wanted to join the business full-time. Help us grow bigger. Reach more customers. Hannah was 8 by then. Sharp as her brothers and sister. Stubborn as her mother. Already talking about becoming a lawyer. Fixing things that weren't fair. The shop kept growing through those years. Steady like sunrise. Reliable like seasons. We moved to a bigger space in 1983. Corner location. Windows facing 2 streets. Room for more machines. More employees. More dreams taking shape. Paige had graduated business school. Came back with spreadsheets and 5-year plans. She understood numbers the way I understood fabric. Natural talent. Inherited gift. Together we learned to read profit margins, cash flow projections, growth potential. The language of business women who meant to stay in business. We hired more seamstresses, trained them our way. Quality first. Customer service always. Mrs. Chen became our supervisor. Gentle authority. Perfectionist disguised as grandmother. The work felt different now. Professional. Permanent. Something that could last. We made uniforms for 3 school districts. Altar cloths for a dozen churches. Wedding dresses. Prom gowns. Curtains for houses becoming homes. Each order a story. Each customer a connection. Each payment a step forward. But the 80s also brought hardship. Recession hit in 1982. Money got tight. Customers delayed orders, stretched payments, asked for credit we couldn't afford to give. We learned to be creative, offered repairs at hourly rates, made things from scraps, turned pretty into practical until practical looked pretty again. Some months we barely made rent. Some weeks we worked without pay. But we never closed, never gave up, never let the numbers defeat us. Nancy helped when she could. Babysat while I worked late. Brought soup when I forgot to eat. Steady friendship that asked nothing. Gave everything. Expected only honesty in return. The hardest part came in 1987. Nora started getting headaches. Bad ones. At first she blamed stress. Long hours. Bad lighting. Normal things. But the headaches got worse. More frequent. Stronger than aspirin could touch. I made her see a doctor. Then a specialist. Then another specialist. The word came back like winter. Cold. Unwelcome. Impossible to ignore. Cancer. Breast cancer. Stage 3. Already spreading. The diagnosis hit like a physical blow. Left us both breathless. Nora cried for exactly 10 minutes. Then wiped her eyes. Asked what came next. Treatment schedule. Surgery options. Prognosis if everything went right. If nothing went wrong. If prayers got answered. If miracles still happened. I held her hand in that doctor's office. Squeezed tight. Made promises. Told her she wouldn't face this alone. Wouldn't fight this alone. Wouldn't die alone if fighting wasn't enough. Surgery came first. Mastectomy. Clean margins. Good news wrapped in bad news. Then chemotherapy. Every 3 weeks. Needle in her arm. Poison to kill poison. I drove her to treatments. Sat beside her while medicine dripped. Brought books to read aloud. Magazines with patterns. Fabric samples. Reminders of the world we'd built together. Her hair fell out in clumps. I helped her choose wigs. Soft caps. Scarves that looked elegant. She said she felt like a fraud. Playing dress up with death. I told her she looked like a warrior. Fighting the hardest battle. With grace. The shop became our refuge. Place where normal still existed. Where work still mattered. Paige managed the daily operations. Luke handled customer relations. I kept the books balanced. Nora came when she could. Between treatments. Between waves of exhaustion. Her presence a reminder that some things were worth fighting for. Business partnerships. Chosen family. Lives built from honest choices. The treatments lasted 8 months. Surgery to chemo to radiation. Modern warfare against ancient enemy. Some days we thought we were winning. Some days the enemy seemed stronger. But we kept working. Kept believing. Kept building toward tomorrow. Even when tomorrow felt uncertain. Even when hope required effort. Even when love meant watching someone you care about suffer. And refusing to look away. The last treatment finished in June of 1988. Nora rang the bell at the cancer center. Traditional celebration for survivors. For people who'd faced the monster and lived. We went back to the shop afterward. Sat in our chairs. Looked around at what we'd built. Fabric samples arranged like rainbows. Machines humming their familiar songs. Customers browsing. Employees working. Life continuing despite everything. Nora said it felt good to be alive. To have work waiting. To have a future worth planning. I agreed. Said we'd been lucky. Not just to survive. But to survive together. To have built something that could weather any storm. Something stronger than secrets. More reliable than promises. Something sewn from honesty. Thread by careful thread. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. The 90s brought growth we'd never imagined. Steady. Relentless. Almost frightening. Second chance stitchery had become something bigger than two women with sewing machines. We employed 12 people by 1990. 15 by 1992. 20 by the mid-decade. Each new hire meant more responsibility. More payroll. More lives depending on our decisions. But also more hands to do the work. More skills to draw from. More dreams taking shape. David had graduated college. Became an engineer who fixed things others gave up on. Water systems in small towns. Bridges in forgotten places. Problems no one else wanted. He married Sarah in 1991. Quiet woman with strong hands. Teacher who loved difficult children. Grace finished design school. Came home with ideas that made my head spin. Talked about fashion lines. Ready-to-wear collections. Taking our work to department stores. She designed a line of work clothes for professional women. Practical but pretty. Suits that fit real bodies. Dresses that looked good in boardrooms and school cafeterias. Luke had joined the business full-time after high school. Natural with customers. Could listen to what people needed. Translate wishes into measurements. Dreams into patterns. He married young. A girl from the neighborhood who laughed at his jokes. Hannah finished high school in 1996. Headed to law school with fire in her eyes. Said the world needed fixing. Laws needed changing. Women needed advocates. She'd grown up watching her mother build something from nothing. Expected to do the same. The business kept expanding. We opened a second location in 1993. Third in 1995. Each shop required managers, training programs, quality control systems. Paige had become our operations director. MBA and common sense in equal measure. She created procedures for everything. Hiring practices, customer service standards, inventory management. Made us professional in ways I'd never imagined when I started in my basement. We landed our biggest contract in 1994. School uniforms for the entire district. 5,000 pieces. Delivered on schedule. Quality guaranteed. Payment terms negotiated. It meant hiring more people. Buying industrial machines. Renting warehouse space. It meant becoming the kind of business that could handle serious responsibility. The kind banks took seriously. The kind suppliers competed for. We celebrated with champagne in paper cups. Standing in our warehouse at midnight. Surrounded by bolts of navy fabric. Boxes of brass buttons. Patterns cut and ready. Nora raised her cup. Made a toast to second chances. To women who refused to quit. To partnerships built on trust instead of lies. The success felt surreal sometimes. like wearing clothes that didn't quite fit. I'd go home to my house. Same kitchen table where I'd once counted Martin's lies. Same windows where I'd first set up that borrowed sewing machine. Now the mortgage was paid. The children's college funds were full. The future looked secure. But success brought new problems. Competitors who undercut our prices. Customers who demanded miracles. A recession in the early 90s that made everyone tighten belts. Including us. We learned to adapt. Offered payment plans. Created budget lines. Found ways to say yes. Never forgot we were serving people like ourselves. Working families. Careful budgets. Dreams that deserved to come true without breaking the bank. Then illness returned. Different this time. Quieter. More insidious. Nora's headaches came back in 1997. Gentle at first. Easy to ignore. But I knew those headaches. Recognized the way she touched her temples. The careful way she moved. Like someone protecting something fragile. The tests confirmed what we both feared. Cancer had returned. Metastasized. Brain tumors this time. Surgery not possible. Treatment limited. Prognosis measured in months. She took the news better than I did. Made lists of things to finish. People to tell. Business decisions that couldn't wait for someday. We worked together through her final months. Planning for a future she wouldn't see. Training managers. Documenting procedures. Ensuring continuity. Making sure Second Chance would survive without one of its founders. She died on a spring morning in 1998. Quietly. At home. Surrounded by fabric samples. Pattern pieces for a dress she'd never finish. Dreams she'd sewn into reality. The funeral was small. Family. Employees. Customers who'd become friends. People whose lives had been touched by her steady presence. Her quiet competence. Her refusal to let betrayal define her future. I spoke at the service. Told them about partnerships built on honesty. About second chances that become first priorities. About women who refuse to stay broken. About building something that outlasts the people who built it. The business continued without her. Because she'd planned it that way. Because she'd believed in systems stronger than any single person. Paige stepped into larger leadership roles. Luke expanded his responsibilities. Grace launched her professional wear line. Hannah graduated law school with honors. Life moved forward. But quieter now. Missing Nora's steady voice. Her practical wisdom. Her faith that tomorrow would be better if we worked to make it so. I kept her bracelet. Silver chain with small charms. Wore it every day. Reminder of what we'd built together. What we'd survived together. What endured. By the end of the decade, we had 6 locations. 50 employees. Regional reputation. Contracts with schools, hospitals, churches across 3 states. Everything we'd dreamed of when we signed those first partnership papers. Everything Nora had believed possible when others called us foolish. 2 divorced women starting a business. 2 mothers with children to feed. 2 survivors who refused to let betrayal write the ending to their stories. Who chose to write their own endings instead. Thread by thread. Choice by choice. Building something honest. Something lasting. Something worth leaving behind. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. The new millennium found me at 61. Gray hair. Reading glasses. Hands that remembered every stitch. Second Chance had become more than I'd ever imagined. More than Nora had lived to see. But the world was changing faster than we could adapt. Computers everywhere. Internet everything. Young customers wanted instant everything. Online ordering. Same-day delivery. Digital perfection. We scrambled to keep up. Built a website. Learned email. Hired tech-savvy employees. Paige led the digital transformation. Grace designed for online catalogs. Luke mastered social media. Even I learned to use a computer. Slowly. With much cursing. But I learned. The business survived Y2K. Survived the dot-com crash. Survived because we'd always survived. By adapting. By changing. By refusing to let new challenges defeat old wisdom. In 2005, a national chain approached us. Wanted to buy Second Chance outright. Big money. Immediate retirement. Freedom from payroll worries and inventory headaches. I was 66 then. Old enough to consider stepping back. Rich enough to choose. But selling felt like betrayal. Of Nora's memory. Of everything we'd built together. The chain promised to keep our employees. Maintain our quality standards. Honor our legacy. Promises that sounded familiar. Like other promises I'd heard before. From men in suits who smiled while they lied. I said no. Not interested. Not for sale. Not now. Not ever. But the conversations planted seeds. Made me think about succession. About endings. About what happens when the founders are gone. When the original vision fades. I called a family meeting. All 4 children. Paige. Key employees. People with stakes in the future. Laid out the situation. The offer. The implications. The choices ahead. David was thriving as an engineer. Had no interest in fabrics or retail management. Grace loved design but wanted creative freedom. Not business responsibilities. Luke was perfect for operations. But he'd never shown interest in ownership. Hannah was building her law practice. Fighting for women's rights. Living her own dreams. Paige was the obvious choice. She'd grown up in the business. Understood every aspect. Had MBA credentials and street-smart wisdom. Nora's steadiness combined with modern training. But she was Martin's daughter too. That stubborn chin. Those dark eyes. That inherited tendency toward secrecy. Could I trust her with everything I'd built? Everything Nora had died protecting? The decision took months. Sleepless nights. Long conversations with Nancy. Walks through the shops. Watching Paige work. Seeing how employees responded to her leadership. How customers trusted her judgment. How she solved problems without drama. She'd earned her place. Step by step. Decision by decision. Through 20 years of proving herself. Not because of who her father was. But despite who her father was. In 2007, we restructured the company. Created an employee ownership plan. Paige became CEO. Luke became COO. Grace headed design. Other key employees got equity stakes. I remained chairman of the board. Keeper of the vision. Guardian of the values. But the daily operations belonged to younger hands now. Steadier hands. More knowledgeable hands. The transition wasn't smooth. Change never is, especially change involving control. But it worked. The business continued growing, adapting, thriving under new leadership. Then 2008 arrived. Economic crash. Credit freeze. Customers disappearing overnight. Orders cancelled. Payments delayed. Suppliers demanding cash up front. Businesses failing everywhere. Dreams collapsing. 30 years of work suddenly fragile. We held emergency meetings. Cut expenses. Laid off employees. Prayed for survival. Paige showed her true strength then. Made hard decisions without flinching. Negotiated with creditors. Found new revenue streams. Kept us afloat while others sank. She saved the company, saved the jobs, saved everything we'd worked to build. Proved she was worthy of the trust I'd placed in her. The recovery took years. Slow climb back to stability. Back to growth. Back to confidence. But we survived. Emerged stronger. More resilient. More grateful for what we had. In 2015, another acquisition offer came. Bigger company. Better terms. Guaranteed legacy protection. This time, I said yes. But with conditions. Non-negotiable conditions. Employee protections. Quality standards. Community commitments. Values preservation. The name would stay. The mission would continue. The promise would be kept. I was 76. Nancy was failing. My grandchildren needed attention. Time to step back. Time to let others carry the torch. Time to trust the future. The signing happened on a Tuesday morning. Lawyers and contracts and ceremonial champagne. I wore Nora's bracelet. Carried her picture in my purse. Felt her presence in the room. We'd done it. Built something that outlasted us. Something that would continue growing. Employing people. Serving customers. Creating beauty from raw materials and human effort. That afternoon, I went home to my house. Same house I'd bought in the 80s. Same kitchen table where I'd once counted lies. Now counting blessings instead. My great-granddaughter was visiting. 4 years old. Curious about everything. She found my sewing basket. Asked if I could teach her to thread a needle. I pulled her onto my lap. Showed her how to hold the thread steady. How to aim for the eye. How to be patient. How to try again when you miss. Her small fingers fumbled with the silk. Concentrated hard. Tried repeatedly. Finally succeeded. Smiled like she'd conquered the world. Asked what came next. I told her next comes the stitching. The careful work. The building something beautiful. One thread at a time. One choice at a time. One day at a time. Like life itself. Like all the best things. Slow. Steady. Strong enough to last. She nodded seriously. Asked if I would teach her more tomorrow. I promised I would. For as long as she wanted to learn. For as long as I had wisdom to share. Stories to tell. Love to give. Outside, the sun was setting. Golden light through clean windows. The future stretching ahead. Full of possibility. Full of hope. Full of young hands ready to hold needles. Ready to make something beautiful. Ready to discover what they could build from nothing but thread and determination. Just like I had. Just like Nora had. Just like women do. When the world tells them no. When life falls apart. When starting over seems impossible. We thread the needle. We make the first stitch. We begin again. Because that's what we do. That's what we've always done. We endure. We adapt. We build something better from the pieces left behind.